BTS dominates global headlines on March 27th to 28th. Comeback aftershocks, controversies, and the true cost of global stardom. The global entertainment industry witnessed an extraordinary surge of attention centered on BTS between March 27th and March 28th, 2026, as the group's long-awaited return continued to unfold in ways that extended far beyond music. What initially appeared to be a standard post-comeback promotional cycle rapidly evolved into a multi-layered global phenomenon involving record-breaking achievements, deeply personal revelations, creative conflicts, public debate, and renewed scrutiny over the realities of global superstardom. These 48 hours did not merely reinforce BTS's position at the top of the industry. They reshaped the conversation around what it means to sustain such a position in an era defined by constant visibility, digital immediacy, and unprecedented fan engagement. Across continents, languages, and platforms, BTS became more than artists promoting an album. They became the focal point of a broader cultural dialogue. The turning point, March 27th, and the release of BTS: The Return. March 27th marked a pivotal moment with the global release of the Netflix documentary BTS: The Return, a production that quickly distinguished itself from the group's previous behind-the-scenes content. Unlike earlier documentaries that leaned toward celebratory narratives and polished storytelling, this film adopted a noticeably more candid and introspective tone. From the very beginning, viewers were presented with a version of BTS rarely seen in mainstream media. The members spoke openly about the pressures that accompanied their return following military service, describing schedules that felt relentless and expectations that seemed to grow rather than diminish over time. What resonated most strongly with audiences was not simply the acknowledgement of hard work, something fans had long understood, but the emotional weight attached to it. Several members discussed a recurring sense of guilt associated with rest, revealing that even brief moments of pause could feel undeserved. This sentiment struck a chord with viewers worldwide, particularly in an era where conversations around mental health and work-life balance have become increasingly prominent. The idea that one of the most successful music groups in history still struggled with such feelings added a layer of complexity to their public image. Viral moments and emotional impact. Within hours of its release, BTS: The Return generated a wave of viral clips across social media platforms. Fans and casual viewers alike shared excerpts highlighting the members' candid reflections, emotional vulnerabilities, and interactions with one another. Hashtags related to the documentary quickly trended globally, signaling not only widespread interest, but also the depth of engagement it inspired. Among the most discussed moments were scenes that captured the group in states of quiet exhaustion, candid conversation, and introspection. Rather than presenting a narrative of uninterrupted triumph, the documentary emphasized the ongoing challenges that accompany sustained success. This shift in tone prompted many viewers to reconsider their understanding of what it means to exist at the pinnacle of the entertainment industry. Importantly, the documentary did not frame these challenges as temporary obstacles, but as inherent aspects of BTS's reality. This distinction contributed to a broader conversation about the sustainability of the idol system and the expectations placed on artists operating at a global level. Creative differences come to light. While the emotional revelations formed the core of the documentary's impact, it was the depiction of creative ikhtilaf that sparked some of the most intense discussions. A particular sequence featuring RM, J-Hope, and V became a focal point of online debate. In this scene, the members engaged in a heated discussion regarding the direction of a track associated with their comeback project. The disagreement, though professional in nature, revealed underlying tensions about artistic identity. At the heart of the conversation was a fundamental question: should BTS prioritize global accessibility or maintain a stronger emphasis on cultural specificity? This dilemma is not unique to BTS, but in their case, it carries heightened significance due to their role as representatives of Korean culture on the world stage. For many viewers, this moment was both surprising and enlightening. It challenged the perception of BTS as a seamlessly unified entity, instead presenting them as individuals with distinct perspectives navigating complex decisions. Rather than diminishing their cohesion, however, this portrayal added depth to their identity as artists. Public reaction: authenticity versus expectation. As discussions surrounding the documentary intensified, public reaction began to split into multiple directions. One segment of the audience praised BTS for their honesty, viewing the film as a courageous step toward transparency. These viewers appreciated the willingness to reveal not only successes but also struggles, interpreting it as a sign of maturity and authenticity. Another segment, however, expressed discomfort with the level of vulnerability displayed. Some questioned whether such candid revelations might alter the group's image or introduce unnecessary concerns among fans. This divergence in response highlighted the delicate balance BTS must maintain between openness and the expectations associated with their global status. At the same time, industry observers noted that the documentary's impact extended beyond fandom circles. Media outlets, critics, and analysts began incorporating its themes into broader discussions about the evolution of the global music industry. The portrayal of BTS's experiences served as a case study for examining the pressures faced by artists operating at an unprecedented scale. Continued dominance of Arirang. Parallel to the documentary's release, BTS's comeback album, Arirang, continued to dominate charts worldwide throughout March 27th. The album's performance reinforced the group's enduring popularity, with multiple tracks maintaining strong positions across streaming platforms. What made this success particularly notable was its consistency across diverse markets. From North America to Asia and Europe, Arirang demonstrated a level of reach that few artists have achieved. This global presence underscored BTS's ability to transcend cultural and linguistic boundaries, solidifying their reputation as a truly international act. However, as with the documentary, the album's success was accompanied by critical discussion. Some commentators argued that the musical direction reflected a strategic alignment with global trends, potentially at the expense of the group's earlier stylistic identity. Others countered that such evolution was both inevitable and necessary for continued relevance. The beginning of a larger conversation. By the end of March 27th, it was evident that BTS's comeback had entered a new phase, one characterized not only by commercial success but also by heightened scrutiny and dialogue. The combination of the documentary's emotional impact and the album's ongoing dominance created a complex narrative that extended beyond traditional measures of success. Rather than a straightforward celebration, the day marked the beginning of a broader conversation about artistry, identity, and sustainability. BTS was no longer simply promoting a project. They were engaging, whether intentionally or not, in a global discourse about the realities of their position. If March 27th marked the emotional unveiling of BTS's reality through BTS The Return, then March 28th became the day when that reality was dissected, debated, and amplified across the global stage. What had begun as admiration quickly evolved into a far more complex and, at times, polarizing conversation. Within just 24 hours, BTS found themselves at the center of a rapidly expanding discourse that extended beyond fandom spaces and into mainstream media, cultural criticism, and industry analysis. The aftershock of the documentary. By the morning of March 28th, clips from BTS The Return had saturated nearly every major social platform. The documentary was no longer being consumed as a single piece of content. It had fragmented into hundreds of viral moments, each sparking its own discussion thread, interpretation, and emotional reaction. Certain lines spoken by the members became particularly influential. Statements reflecting exhaustion, pressure, and the burden of expectations were quoted, reposted, and translated into multiple languages. These excerpts resonated deeply with global audiences, many of whom began relating BTS's experiences to broader societal issues such as burnout, overwork culture, and the psychological cost of success. However, as the reach of these clips expanded, so did the diversity of interpretations. What one group of viewers perceived as honesty and courage, another interpreted as a concerning signal about the sustainability of BTS's current trajectory. This divergence in perception marked the beginning of a more divided public response. Media narratives begin to shift. On March 28th, major entertainment outlets began publishing analytical pieces examining the implications of BTS's revelations. Headlines moved beyond simple praise and into more nuanced territory, raising questions about the long-term effects of the pressures described in the documentary. Some articles framed BTS as emblematic of a broader issue within the global entertainment industry, highlighting the intense demands placed on top-tier artists. Others focused specifically on the group, questioning whether their current pace was sustainable or whether adjustments would be necessary to ensure longevity. This shift in media tone did not indicate a loss of support, but rather an evolution in how BTS was being discussed. They were no longer viewed solely through the lens of success. They were now part of a larger conversation about the cost of maintaining that success. Fan communities, unity and fracture. Within fan communities, March 28th became a day of both solidarity and division. On one hand, many fans rallied around BTS, expressing support and concern for the members' well-being. Messages encouraging rest, balance, and self-care spread widely, demonstrating the strong emotional bond between the group and their audience. On the other hand, disagreements began to surface regarding the interpretation of both the documentary and the album Arirang. Some fans defended every aspect of the group's current direction, emphasizing trust in BTS's artistic decisions. Others voiced more critical perspectives, questioning whether certain changes aligned with what they believed BTS represented. These internal debates were not necessarily negative, but they did highlight the diversity within the global fanbase. BTS's audience is no longer a monolithic entity. It is a vast and varied community with differing expectations, preferences, and interpretations. The Arirang debate reaches a peak. While the documentary dominated much of the conversation, the music itself remained a central topic. On March 28th, discussions surrounding Arirang intensified, with both critics and listeners offering detailed analyses of the album's sound, themes, and production choices. One of the most prominent points of debate was the album's perceived balance between Korean cultural elements and global musical trends. For some, the incorporation of traditional influences represented a powerful statement of identity. For others, the overall production leaned too heavily toward international pop conventions, creating a sense of disconnect from BTS's earlier work. Importantly, these discussions were not confined to casual commentary. Music critics and industry professionals contributed their perspectives, adding layers of technical analysis to the conversation. Topics such as arrangement, lyrical themes, and market positioning were explored in depth, reflecting the level of seriousness with which BTS's work is now evaluated. Viral controversies and misinterpretations. As is often the case in the digital age, the rapid spread of content also led to instances of misinterpretation. Short clips taken out of context began circulating, sometimes altering the perceived meaning of certain statements or interactions. These moments fueled additional controversy, as viewers who had not seen the full documentary formed opinions based on incomplete information. Debates escalated quickly, with differing viewpoints clashing across platforms. In some cases, discussions became less about BTS themselves, and more about broader issues such as media consumption, context, and the nature of online discourse. Despite these challenges, the overall level of engagement remained extraordinarily high. Every new post, article, or clip contributed to an ongoing cycle of reaction and response, keeping BTS at the forefront of global attention. The role of international versus domestic perspectives. An interesting dynamic that emerged on March 28th was the contrast between international and domestic reactions. While global audiences often focused on the emotional and artistic aspects of BTS's narrative, some discussions within South Korea took on a slightly different tone. Local commentary occasionally emphasized practical considerations such as industry structure, resource allocation, and public perception within the domestic market. This difference in focus highlighted the dual identity BTS must navigate. They are simultaneously a global phenomenon and a Korean act operating within a specific cultural and industrial context. The coexistence of these perspectives added another layer of complexity to the overall narrative. BTS's actions and decisions are interpreted through multiple lenses, each shaped by different expectations and priorities. Continued impact of the comeback event. The large-scale comeback event associated with Arirang continued to generate discussion throughout March 28th. While its global reach and production value were widely acknowledged, ongoing analysis raised questions about scale, logistics, and long-term strategy. Observers debated whether such expansive productions represented the future of global music events, or whether they posed challenges in terms of sustainability and resource management. BTS, once again, found themselves at the center of a conversation that extended beyond their own activities and into the broader evolution of the industry. A shift from celebration to reflection. By the end of March 28th, the tone surrounding BTS had shifted noticeably from pure celebration to a more reflective and, at times, critical engagement. This did not diminish their achievements, rather, it signaled a deeper level of investment from both fans and observers. BTS was no longer being discussed only as entertainers delivering content. They were being examined as artists, public figures, and cultural symbols navigating a complex landscape. Every aspect of their work, from music to messaging to personal well-being, was subject to analysis. The emergence of a defining narrative. Taken together, the events of March 28th solidified a key narrative. BTS's comeback is not a singular moment, but an evolving story. It is a story that encompasses triumph and tension, admiration and critique, unity and division. This narrative is shaped not only by BTS themselves, but also by the countless voices engaging with their work. In this sense, BTS's influence extends beyond what they create. It includes the conversations they inspire. As the second day of this 48-hour period came to a close, one thing became increasingly clear. BTS had once again captured the world's attention, but this time, the spotlight was illuminating more than just their success. It was revealing the complexities, challenges, and contradictions that come with sustaining global superstardom in the modern era.